Ashford Social Media presents Face to Face, an in-depth look into the lives of Ashford Social Media's most interesting members, with your host, Lucy Norris.
Hi, I'm Lucy Norris, and today we are pleased to have as our guest a man who has influenced many people all over the world with his work both as a motivational speaker and spiritualist. It's my pleasure to welcome to the show Victor Owen. Victor, why don't you start off by telling us a bit about yourself?
It turns out that my grandmother on my father's side, she died just a few months after I was born. And I understand, and I've always cherished this, thought that she was so happy to see that she lived to see two of her grandchildren. My cousin Mary was born 6 months ahead of me, and then I was born, and she held us both. And then she died, so I really don't remember her at all. But it turns out, since I became a medium, that I realized that she was a medium. But in those days, I mean, it was only the 40s or the 30s or the 20s. But you know, people who saw things like that were considered to be, perhaps, a witch, or she never told anyone about it, and she just dealt with it. But she knew she had the gift or whatever she thought it was. Unfortunately, this is a sad story. My father, also Victor V, and I'm Victor F. Owen, get the plug in. He was also a medium, but did not know it. And all his life, he was disturbed by voices that just were there in his head. He could hear these voices, and it troubled him. And it got to the point he was working long hours, and he was just so wrapped up that he went for a medical assistance. And they said, oh, you're paranoid schizophrenic. And they put him into a mental hospital. And he was supposed to have 14 electric shock therapy treatments. I was in 4th grade. This was around 1952. And but he didn't have enough. They gave him just enough because the hospital was moving to a new location, and the psychiatrist said, well, you're doing well enough. Instead of you going through that, let's go home and I'll just, we'll have our visits. And that was not good, because it changed his personality, and for years he was just a very, very emotionally he flared up very easily, and it was very difficult living with him. He took offense at everything and so forth, and he was hearing these voices still. And then about 12 years later, excuse me, he had to go back in again, and they gave him a full. Well, after that, he seemed to deal with it, and he became back to be the most wonderful father. Now, he was wonderful until I was in 4th grade, and then after that, I withdrew because I was always so afraid of saying the wrong thing or offending him. He never touched me, he never hit me, never anything like that. It was all verbal, and he seemed to take most of it out on my mother, and they would argue and so forth, and so it was really sad. And then I was 16, and I said to my mother, I said, Mom, let's leave him. Please, let's leave him. We don't, this is terrible. And she says, no, I'm not going to leave him. That's not the man I married. And she said, I love him, and I promise that, until death do we part, in sickness and health, and I'm going to stay there. Well, after it was my first week of teaching. After I graduated from college, I became a music teacher. And it was the first week of school, I get a call from my aunt saying, they call me Vicky, you got to come home, your daddy's really sick again. So that's when he went back in. Well, after that, he was wonderful. His whole attitude towards life changed, and so forth. He was still hearing voices. I thought he was paranoid schizophrenic, and that it was all imaginary, and that well, it turns out they were real spirits who knew he had the ability to channel for him, and they were just going, and he would just hear them, and he didn't know what to do. So he heard them until the day he died. I've spoken to him. Some people who don't believe this is, this is a video, and they're going to say, uh-oh, there he goes. But I've been in touch with my parents and many relatives and so forth, And he didn't know that that's what it was. And they knew he had the ability, and they just wanted to channel because there was a message they had to get out. And rather than saying, I am not trained, I am not a medium, I know I'm psychic, but I don't know what to do about it, please find someone else. And the spirits would go away. You can send them away. But you know, he just went negative towards them, and they just went back in intensity.
Victor, when did you realize that you had the gift?
For me, it was a matter of, I was probably less than 1 year old. And I mean, of course, I remember from about a year, 14 months on. It was during World War II, and a lot of things happened in my town, and I remember them well. We had blackouts. We lived right across the street from a beautiful park with a manor in it, that, you know, a historic manor. But that's where they put the air raid siren, and we had blackouts, and people roamed the streets. They were called wardens, and if they could see a sliver of light through your you know, the curtain, or your, you know, they would bang on your door. You know, if the Germans come over, excuse me, I don't mean to be national there. If we were to have a you know, an actual air raid, okay, they could see that sliver of light and say, ah, there's something down there. Boom. All right, but I do remember I had an imaginary friend, and the friend was not imaginary. I realized as I became more spiritual. When children say they have an imaginary friend and they're dealing with talking to them, you know, everybody says, oh, isn't that cute? They have an imaginary friend. You have an imaginary friend. Oh, what's your friend? Oh, that's, well, imaginary. As they start to grow up, they relinquish the ability by turning it off and denying it and getting real friends or whatever. And so, you know, if anyone has a child who says, you know, I've got a friend who comes to see me in my room, I would check into it, you know, and just say, oh, well, what is your friend's name? You know, well, will your friend say hello to me? You know, and try to engage the child and engage the spirit and see what's going on there. So people would meet me when we went to Poughkeepsie shopping. I lived in Wappingers Falls, which is just about 75 miles north of New York City. And Poughkeepsie was 8 miles north. That's where I was born. But that's where you went to shop, because we just had a village. And, you know, you'd meet people on the street. And I was really a gorgeous young baby and a young child. And I hit puberty, and this is what happened. But anyway, as a child, I was really gorgeous. I can say that bragging because, you know, I'm not bragging about me now.
You are still a handsome man.
Well, you're a lovely lady, and it's nice to hear it. I don't hear it too often, especially with such enthusiasm. But anyway, you know, it's so I'd say, well, yes, I have a sister in Newburgh, which was 8 miles downriver, across the way, no bridge. You had to go in a car on the ferry to get across. You know, just like the Brooklyn, or well, we don't have Brooklyn anymore, but we did when I was a kid. The Staten Island ferry that still exists. It was exactly like that. I'd never been there. I was only like, you know, a toddler, you know, not even 2 years old, and I'd be saying, I have a sister who lives in Newburgh. My mother would say, you do not, you do not. You know, people would be looking at her as if to say, well, you know, well, why do you have your daughter in Newburgh, you know? Whoever that young lady was from Newburgh originally, and she probably died as a child, and came to me as, and told me all about herself and so forth. I started to grow up, and I put that away. But my entire life, I had psychic type experiences, things that would happen that I realized were paranormal, and I said, "Ooh, you know, that's kind of cool and it's neat." Hello, anybody there?
So Victor, as well as being a medium and also motivational speaker and life coach, you're also a healer. Tell us what healing is, and are there different types of healing?
Let me put it this way. It is a form of mediumship. Okay. And it is not something that we perform lightly. Anyone cannot just be a healer to a degree. We spoke earlier about a smile. That's also healing, okay? You gotta, you know, if you feel lousy and somebody smiles at you, you feel a little better. But healing is not a cure, okay? If you have a heart attack or a ruptured appendix or something, I can't cure that. What I can do, though, as a spiritualist healer, having been trained and studied the dynamics and the laws of the natural laws as they are understood and putting them into place, I can channel the healing of God to the individual and vice versa. Okay, I am a medium. I'm in the middle. Okay, just the messenger. So I center myself, and then I perform healing. We start off by usually putting our hands lightly on the shoulder, and praying and asking God to please, present to this person. We don't ask them what their problem is. We just start the healing. And we just say to God, please, this person has presented themselves to you in a manner of reverence because they believe in your power to help them feel better, not necessarily be cured. Okay, well, what if, for example, it was an emotional illness or a anxiety or a psychological? There can possibly be a cure there because the individual realizes that they are receiving the actual power of God through the vibration, that the energy that we give off. Now, we all have an energy field. For example, Lucy, I see your aura, and it's just beautiful, and it's wide. If somebody walks through that, they can pick up on it. All right. Have you ever? This is a little aside, but it's the same thing. Have you ever, for example, been with someone and you see them coming and you say, "Oh dear God, no, I'm not ready for this today." Yeah. And they just go on, and they just suck the very life out of your soul. Okay?
I take the energy out of the room. It's too much.
They are spiritual vampires.
Okay.
All right? And they need healing. And they know they need it because they took your energy. But it's similar to that. So the healer, spiritualist medium healer, puts themselves, by centering themselves, into a spot where they can pick up the natural law of vibration and ask God to let you be the channel, the messenger of giving the energy that this person may need in order to put themselves in a sense of well-being. A person may have cancer and present themselves to you. That doesn't, I've never cured anybody of cancer or anything. It's not going to happen. But if they feel better about themselves, if they feel a little bit more determined that they're going to work with their doctor, they're going to get through this chemotherapy or whatever it is, that's healing.
We're just going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking more about Victor's company, Manifest Myself.
Advocating, educating, and inspiring healthcare improvement for newborns and their families is the mission of Dr. Barb CNM, LLC. Dr. Barb is passionate about kangaroo care, holding the newborn skin to skin on mother's chest, starting immediately after birth. This is the optimal habitat for newborns, where they adapt to life outside the womb. To learn more about kangaroo care and Dr. Barb's consulting services, visit drbarbcnm.com. Coach D, let me ask you, how was the Ashford experience?
It was fantastic. I just cannot say how honored, privileged, and humble I am to be here at Ashford with everybody that has taken the time to talk with me, to chat with me, to get to know me, from myself to get to know them, from the CEO all the way down. Everybody's just been totally fantastic.
The Ashford experience includes a hotel stay in New York City, a Broadway show, and a limo to and from the studio to record your radio show, as well as dinner with the host and executive producers. Enjoy the benefits of the Ashford experience for yourself. Call today at 1-888-945-4442. All business owners want to be number one, break new ground, and reach new heights. However, the corporate world can be a vast and unyielding place. Don't become lost on your path to success. You need help achieving the results you're looking for. Allow Mark Lindsay to show you the way. Mark Lindsay's $10,000 Profit Challenge guarantees you an increase in business and cash flow. No gimmicks, just results. For more information on Mark Lindsay and his company, Visit his website, coachmarklindsay.net/guided tour. Let Coach Mark Lindsay double your business in 16 months. Make your decision today.
And we are back. Welcome to Face to Face. Before we left the commercial, we were talking about Victor's life and different fields that he's involved with. Now, Victor, why don't you continue on and tell us about your new company?
My company, I call it Manifest Myself, exclamation point. I say it two ways, a spirit-based, DNA spirit-based approach to achieving your ultimate potential, or I sometimes say, when it's more appropriate, a conception, quotes type, a conception, at your conception. So it's a conception-based approach to reaching your ultimate potential. I've had so many hats in my life. I am psychic and became a spiritualist medium. I've taught. I've been a monk, if you want to call it that. I'm a Franciscan friar. I've been in the academic world. I taught at the college level. I taught K through 12. I was with AT&T in several different positions, and then I ended up being a human resources person for a huge library in a system at the University of Central Florida. So I have all of these things in my background. So yes, I've had a very interesting life. I was born very, very aware. I did not have playmates when I was young because I lived on a street that was basically for older people. I lived across the street from the church, the rectory, the school, and the convent, and they were all my neighbors. And it was funny because when I first moved there, that was my grandmother and grandfather's house, and when she died, my mother and father and I moved up to care for my grandfather and my uncle. I used to think of that Jesus was my neighbor, okay? And I used to go across the street and visit him. And I used to take my little sand pail, and I used to take holy water out of it and use it to make mud pies and stuff. And I used to play my drum and walk up and down the aisles of the graveyard, very psychic. And so as a result, I mean, from that point on, I have just had a wonderful life. I was realized very young that I was different than the other guys. In those days, I didn't even think of them as guys. They were boys, and they were starting to be interested in the girls in a way that I couldn't quite relate to, and I didn't understand why. But I learned real quickly that what you do is you fake it, okay? You go right in your closet and you slam that door and you act just like everybody else. So I was gay, and finally I realized at a certain point I was. Well, of course, this is a sin in the Catholic Church, and I was very devout. So I had no brothers and sisters. I didn't know what to do. I found myself teaching. I didn't want to sin. I was still a virgin. It was driving me nuts. So I decided to go into the Franciscan friars, become a monk. Yeah, I use monk because most people don't understand what a friar is. That was my runaway. I figured I'd always be with people who cared for me, and I would be doing God's will because that's the way he made me, and I didn't want to be a sinner. Well, after about 6 years of studying all of these things that I didn't believe in the first place, on the way to the priesthood, I just realized you don't run away from yourself to God. God made me this way. And it was very interesting. Within the shortest length of time, I was introduced to a wonderful person by the name of Gino Grossi. And we met, it was love at first sight, and we've been together now for 43 years. Okay, so this is my life. So I then realized just how spiritual and psychic I am. I joined the Spiritualist Church. I joined the Spiritualist Church of Awareness in Orlando, Florida, and I learned how to deal with all of these things and so forth.
Victor, during the break I noticed your pendant. Why don't you tell us about it?
In the religion of spiritualism, they chose the sunflower to be the symbol because you always need to look to the light. You always need to look to God. And if you know the story of the sunflower, in the morning, the sunflower turns to the east as the sun rises. And as the sun slowly passes through the day, it follows the sun and right on down to its setting. So that's the way they chose this symbol, and that's why I wear this.
So Victor, tell us, what is the title of your book?
Ooh. It's a work in process, or progress, I should say. It's process, though, because I do a little writing here, a little writing there, and I know it's going to come together. I have a problem because books are a dime a dozen. No, they're not. They're 25 or 20, 30 bucks today. But what can I say that hasn't already been said? Well, I'm going to say it differently. So the title will probably be, I Ain't Your Ordinary Medium.
Well, it's a pleasure having you on the show today, Victor.
Well, I have a feeling I enjoyed it more than you did. and I think you enjoyed it a lot. This has really been a pleasure. Thank you so very much.
No, thank you, Victor. I'm Lucy Norris, and this is Face to Face, brought to you by Ashford Social Media.